I'm Chris Nuñez. I'm here with Jay Mace, the Chief Creative Officer for Ford, and we're launching the Ford Fusion. Jay, how you doing?
I'm great. Nice to see you.
We're going to have a conversation with the ultimate craftsman.
Oh, that's a nice thing to say. Thank you.
Well, 30 years in the game, and look what you're producing.
Well, we seem to know what we're doing. We're getting better and better at it. We were talking a little earlier that you do one car over and over and over again your entire life, and it just keeps getting better and better. And I have been doing this 33 years. So after I graduated from Art Center out in Pasadena, California, I've kind of traveled all over the world. I've worked for Audi, BMW. I'm back at Ford now for the last 13 years. But the car is essentially still got my signature on it, and I kind of like that.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
It's an amazing job. Let me ask you right out of the gate, at what point of your life did you say, you know what, I'm going to design automobiles?
It's an unfortunate story. I was flunking out of journalism school, so I wasn't. I'd been at the University of Oklahoma, which is originally where I'm from, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I'd been 3 years in journalism school, and I wasn't enjoying it, and the journalism school wasn't enjoying me very much. And I found out by complete accident that there was a school out in California that you could get a degree in automotive design, and that they would actually pay a grown man money to draw cars every day. And I thought, this has got to be too good to be true. So I worked an entire summer, put together a portfolio, was accepted to the school, and came right out of school 4 years later, and went off to Audi in Germany. And my intention was I was going to be there for maybe a couple of years, get a little bit of a European experience, and 14 years later, I was the design director for Audi.
Do you find that your travel is what really kind of sprung your career off from coming from Oklahoma and saying, you know what, I'm going to take a job abroad, I'm going to get myself to Audi? Would you say that that was really the springboard in your career, being a man of grabbing your luggage and going?
Probably still is. You've traveled a lot as I have, and I think the more you know, the more experiences you have on the world stage, the more it informs the kind of design you do. So when I was fresh out of school, I hadn't been very many places, and to go to Germany and work for a European, particularly a German company for 14 years, completely changed the way I thought about design, completely changed the way I thought about culture as well.
So how has German design influenced your design?
Well, I think it makes it more real. It makes it certainly more honest. Everything German is engineering based, and I really like that. I like cars that have the look of intelligence,
right.
And I think German cars all do that. So they're not superficial, they're very, very straightforward. They sort of give you an indication of what kind of technology is inside them. They're not overly fashionable. In fact, they're almost anti-fashion, to really put a point on it. And it lets the technology speak for itself. So as we've developed the design language for the new Fords, of which the Fusion here is sort of a new beginning, we've kind of gone down that route of letting the car not scream in terms of style, but just be stylish.
What's the inspiration that you draw? Like, how do you bring your American upbringing back into your styling, having such strong roots, overseas?
Well, it's interesting because there's a foundation there of honesty that I think was my German influence and the experiences that I had at Audi. But if you come back to the United States, people do like something a little bit more flamboyant. So without becoming overly stylish, you've got to give them some wow factor. And so I sort of almost do a checklist. I've got an intuition for what I want a really beautiful, fluid form to look like, but I also kind of check it against what the competition's doing. So, for example, on this car, we've got something that we call silhouette innovation, and that's sort of a fancy phrase for saying the profile of the car is far more fluid and dynamic than the competition in the road. If you look at the shapes on this car, they're also extraordinarily tailored because it looks more expensive. And I've got this thing, because Ford's a mainstream manufacturer. When I was working at Audi, they were an elitist manufacturer. Ford's a populist manufacturer. But I kind of like that because it allows us to give our mainstream customer a premium experience. So the idea of creating a car that maybe looks $10,000 to $15,000 more expensive than it actually is, I get a huge kick out of that because I know that the customer will think, wow, I've really gotten my money's worth here.
Yeah, you're a tastemaker in the automobile industry, and you have a way of really showing your flair in every project that you do. Do you draw inspiration? You know, you told me a funny story earlier, and I'd like to touch on it, kind of how you draw inspiration from Disney.
Well, it's funny, when I was in Art Center out in Pasadena, you know, that's an area that's pretty much heavily tied to the film industry. And Disney, as well as John Lasseter at Pixar, have both been huge influences in my life because they told me about storytelling and told me how to tell a story. And there's an uncanny resemblance in terms of how you make a film and how you tell a story and how you do an automobile and tell a story. One, you put it on celluloid, or these days digital, and one, you're just bending sheet metal. But both ways you're telling a story. So you'll go to the movies these days, you'll see a lot of movies that don't have a great story, they're just special effects where things blow up, and you forget those movies 10 minutes after you leave the movie theater. But the stories that are great in movies, those are the stories then, and those are the movies that last for decades after and have a cultural influence on your life. So I like every car to have a story, and every story can be different. This story we touched on briefly is all about an aspiration to premiumness and delivering premium to people that normally wouldn't be able to afford it.
Yeah. You definitely have a signature in your field. It's incredible, you know, and it's a great inspiration as an artist to get to take time to work with you and just to have a conversation with you regarding your craftsmanship. And we spoke earlier how important that is, and I think it's something for the young generation to understand that it's still important to pick up a pen, pencil, and draw every day and really put your signature on something to make it your creation, as opposed to just putting something together, you know, in a Photoshop program. It's really important to be able to do that.
I think you've hit on something really important, and you and I both traveled a lot, and we've shared similar experiences. There's a huge difference between seeing something on the internet that might have happened in Brazil or China or Japan or Korea, and just downloading that information, and then actually being in that culture and experiencing it. So as much as I love the instantaneous download that you get off the internet, nothing replaces actually being in a culture, soaking that up and living in that culture and understanding the mindset that gave that culture the ability to produce whatever it is that they're producing. And the German cars are a great example of that. It's a very Teutonic mindset, it's a very logical type of culture, and what spits out at the other end is a German car. Whereas at Ford, we have a more international approach because we sell cars all over the world. And so the mindset within Ford is to give people as much value as possible.
I think, you know, I think it's a beautiful thing that 20 years ago, starting out tattooing and thinking that I'm going to get to see with the, you know, with yourself, with somebody who's created all of the beautiful work you've created, the fusion that's actually taken place between the street world, the automotive world, the art world, you know, food, culture, dynamics that the internet has given us, has created this great amalgamation of a way to bring all products together and bring all talents together. And I think we see that a lot, even in the way that you have people like myself, a tattooist, you know, here with you for the launch of your product. It's incredible.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I'm interested in what you do as well, but I think we'd both agree that we draw influences from architecture, from fashion, from furniture design, from restaurants, the way they look. I'm really interested in the culinary arts, not just because of the taste and the senses of smell, but also in the presentation. So I'm kind of clocking when I go to a restaurant, everything that's going on. What's the tableware look like? How's the waiter dressed? What's the whole vibe inside a place? And all of that can't help but rub off in a creative way, no matter what you're working on.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, it was a pleasure. I'm so glad that
My
we could
pleasure.
talk.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed
Jim.
it.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.